Rise. Members of the Council, officers of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Worship, the Mayor of Nuneaton and Bedworth, Councillor Martin Walsh.
Thank you, folks. Be seated. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the full council meeting on the 5th of July 2023. There is no fire drill expected, but if alarm does sound, then please evacuate the building via the entrances and the signed areas and make your way across the road to the Lloyds Bank. Thank you very much. I also remind you that this is being live streamed and recorded for future viewing on the Council's YouTube channel. Please can you ensure that your phones are switched off or onto silent. Thank you very much. Item 2, we have apologies. Apologies from Councillor Downs, Beetham, Evans, Rob Troman and Mandy Tromans. Do we have any other apologies? Yes, Councillor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Neil Phillips.
Thank you, Councillor. That will be noted. Okay. Are there any other declarations of interest? Anything different than would be on the schedule? No, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting that took place on the 17th of May. I'd like to propose that as being true and accurate record thereof. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Any questions relating to that? In which case I'll take that as a vote. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. We move forward. Okay, item 4, we've already done that, sorry. Declaration of interest, already done that. Jumped the gun. Item 5, announcements. Councillor Wilson, you have an announcement, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My announcement is that I would like to formally put on record our congratulations to the Nuneaton Carnival Committee for their successful, I must say, a fantastic day that we all had on, I believe it was Sunday the 11th of June, is that correct from memory? It seems like a long time ago now. The crowds in Nuneaton, and indeed residents from Bedworth and beyond, came in their thousands, Mr. Mayor, to support Nuneaton Carnival. I know that you and others enjoyed it. It was a particularly sweltering day for those of us who walked around, but we collected in total over £5,000 with the Nuneaton Carnival, which has now been or will be used for supporting various charities within the borough. So on behalf of the council, I would like to place on record our thanks to the organising committee for bringing back this marvellous tradition which generations of residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth have enjoyed.
Thank you, councillors. I'll endorse that as well. Thank you. Also like to call upon Councillor Clark. I believe you wish to make an announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's not usual, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on your first meeting. I'm sure you, well, second meeting actually, but congratulations again. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was just basically to offer up an update in relation to the Mayor's charity. It's now closed, and as Councillor Wilson said, benefited from the excellent turnout that the Carnival committee gave and the parade that happened. But the update, and I presented a cheque last week to the air ambulance, was for £41,110, and I'd like to thank everybody involved in reaching and attaining that tremendous effort and the amount raised. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you to the people of Nuneaton for their support. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much, Councillor Clark. That was excellent, an excellent result from that, from your point of view, in terms for the air ambulance. And yes, coming back on Councillor Wilson's comment, it was a very well turned out day in terms of the public, very well supported. And yes, it was very, very warm walking around. Very, very warm. But that brought the crowds out, which was nice. In all fairness, you know, the better the weather, the more the crowds will turn out. So it was a very good event, and very good the fact it came back onto the agenda for the town, etc. Thank you very much. I believe we also have a little presentation to make to previous Mayor, Councillor Clark. If you'd like to come forward, please. I have a couple of short announcements myself. Firstly, I would like to thank one of my fellow Bedworth councillors and friend, Councillor Brown, who has put himself up for the Cotswold Classic Cycle Challenge. He's going to cycle some 50 miles, up and down hills, I believe, to somewhere to the extent of 3,000 feet in total, on the 19th of August of this year. And very nicely, he has raised a Just Giving page, and the monies will go to the Mayor's charity, my charity, which is, as we all know, Zoe's Place. And I thank you, Councillor Brown. I would also like to thank Councillor Gutteridge and the team from the Parks team for putting the flowers into Bedworth now, into the town centre, which really looks very nice indeed. I appreciate your time and effort, and the guys there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor. We move forward to item number 6, which is public participation. We have 2 public speakers. We have Mrs. Condacor, if you'd like to take the mic, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Could the council leader explain why material is being deleted from the council website, particularly around climate change and the abandoned scheme for flood protection for Nuneaton Town Centre? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Condacor. Councillor Wilson, would you like to respond? Oh, sorry. Councillor Croft, my apologies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The website falls under my purview, so I shall pick up that question. Listening, I hope this should be an easy question to dispose of, because it's something very routine, and listening to Mrs. Condacor, I do hope that she simply got the wrong end of the stick rather than trying to manufacture a scandal out of something very simple. Suffice to say that the council regularly reviews its website to make sure that our material is current and relevant. From time to time, pages are reviewed and content may be edited, located or removed to reflect current programmes and priorities. That's part of proper governance. Any organisation with a website will do it. And very often, it's simple common sense. For example, when there's a change of administration, the policy priorities of the council will change. It would look rather silly if we carried on promoting the policy priorities of the previous administration. In the past few years, we've got rid of the climbing wall, so it would be somewhat absurd to continue to promote it online. And there are countless other examples as to why we would need to change or remove content. And this process of refreshing the website is continuous. It's also absolutely necessary to help keep our website focused on the customer. It would be an understatement, I think, Mr. Mayor, to say that council websites are not famed for providing the most user-friendly experiences, and a website full of outdated and irrelevant information would not help matters. And you may have noticed, Mr. Mayor, that there have been more changes recently. That's because we're preparing to migrate the website to a new platform and are therefore taking the opportunity to have a bigger push on tidying up content and removing redundant material. It's also worth pointing out that we continue to maintain the archive of committee papers and minutes, etc., as a public record. As for the specific things to which Mrs. Condacor referred, I'm afraid that none of the Cabinet micromanage which specific pages are placed on the website, and she will have to be very specific about what pages are missing. And if she comes to those, we can track it down. But the scale of the change is such that she'll have to be a bit more specific. But if she has a touch of nostalgia and wishes to enjoy the classic website experience, I'd refer her to the Wayback Machine. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor
Could I
Croft.
have a follow-up, please?
Indeed, you may. Thank you.
My main concern is really regarding climate change. There is absolutely nothing on the website regarding climate change. The Warwickshire Climate Partnership, or I'm not sure whether I've got that name correct, has a page, and it says, see what our partners are doing. And we are the only borough in the county that doesn't link directly to a dedicated website with all their climate change strategy and what they're doing. When you click on the link for Nuneaton and Bedworth, it simply goes to the home page. If you then search climate change, it comes up with virtually nothing. It's really, really important. Only yesterday they were reporting that June was the hottest June on record and things. Climate change is really, really important, and we need to be taking a lead and doing something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Condacor. Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a point of order, it is a supplementary question, not a supplementary statement. I don't believe there was actually a question contained within the ramblings we just heard.
Councillor Condacor.
This is an important matter, and I ask this gets referred to the relevant scrutiny committee, which I think is Finance, Scrutiny, OSC. And can I take that to a vote, please? Just a second.
We're back on. Sorry about that. Do you second that, Councillor Wright? In which case, straight vote. Can we have those in favour, please? Those against? I'm afraid that's lost. Thank you. Sorry, abstentions? In which case, sorry, yes. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move forward to the second question. Mr. Alan Baxter.
Thank you. Do I need to press anything? Oh, okay. Hello there. I'll read this slowly because I've accidentally printed it out really, really small. It's going to be easier without this. Oh, no, I'll be okay. I'll persevere with this one. Thank you. In October 2021, there was a meeting here at Council where the Rise and Send service in Nuneaton and Warwickshire with the CCG was discussed. Of special interest was the exceptionally long waiting list people were experiencing at the time, officially listed as 3.6 years. One of the options listed in their presentation to reduce this waiting time was to reduce the numbers of people being referred for a diagnosis, which was particularly objectionable, I thought. The outcome of the meeting was that any decisions would be deferred and that the CCG Rise and the Ascent team would come back at a future date and make another presentation with an improved offering for the borough. It was also highlighted in this meeting that the same waiting list in South Staffordshire was only 12 weeks, a stark comparison for somewhere only a handful of miles away. Now, almost 2 years later, we are still waiting for a follow-up presentation. RISE are also stating on their answer phone service that they are now processing referrals from 2020. So the waiting time is still officially 3 years and over. Nothing has changed. Could the council kindly inform us just what exactly is happening regards to this follow-up presentation? And what pressures are the council putting on the CCG, RISE and the SEN organisations in Warwickshire to try to improve the service offering to residents here such that we have a similar service to that in South Staffordshire? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Unfortunately, the chair of the Housing Environment OSP committee is not here. He's at a conference. So your question will be passed on to him directly, and then you'll get a written response, and it will also be published within the minutes of this meeting. Thank you. We move forward to item number 7, which is questions from members. I'd first like to go to Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over recent months, I've observed numerous personal attacks towards my colleague, Councillor Evans, in particular over the Bedworth Civic Hall. Whilst councillors are expected by many to have a thick skin towards a level of abuse, these attacks, which have included death threats, have not been reasonable and have related to issues that are, quite frankly, out of his control. Would the Cabinet member confirm that several years ago it was Councillor Evans who attempted to get the then Labour-controlled council to bring in external auditors to effectively save the Civic Hall, despite the fact that the Labour councillors then representing Bedworth voted against his proposals? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Markham, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for your question. Because of the problems with escalating losses and high running costs of the Civic Hall, there have been ongoing discussions regarding the future and delivery of it for many years. As a result, it was debated at Cabinet, Council and OSP annually. So it's not something that's just arose in the last few months. I believe under the Labour administration, Councillor Evans did ask for a review and consultation into the running and the costs for the Civic, but it was never forthcoming. When the Conservative took over the administration of this council, Councillor Evans commissioned the services of an external consultant, which looked at different options. This document is in the public domain and has been widely reported on since the announcement not to reopen the Civic Hall.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. I have a question from Councillor Condacor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is for the Chair of the Business Regeneration and Planning, OSC. A meeting of the Business Regeneration Planning, OSC, was held on the 8th of December 2022, when the panel was told that we're at legal stages with a new cinema operator and leisure operator for the Abbey Street site. At the time, it was expected that the council would complete that process and name an operator early in the new year. I asked that the project be taken back to that panel in around 6 months, and the then chair, which was yourself, Mr. Mayor, agreed. That was 7 months ago. Since then, we've had more economic pressures. We've seen a few councils come close to bankruptcy due to over-optimistic redevelopment projects. Will the new chair of the Business Regeneration Panel ensure that we have urgent scrutiny of the various elements of the Abbey Street project to ensure that all the individual business cases are still robust. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Clark, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank Councillor Condacor for his question. It's my understanding that the final legal stages are still ongoing for the new cinema and the leisure operator that are signing up for Grayson Place. And it's absolutely right that both sides complete their due diligence as this is a partnership for the long term, not a quick fix. It's for the betterment of our borough. I have discussed the financial situation with the leader and also the finance portfolio holder, and I can confirm that officers continue to work on how the recent developments in the economic climate will affect the financial modelling on these schemes. We have seen several months of interest rate rises, and officers need time to properly assess how these impact our regeneration projects. That is why I would not agree to having a meeting on this particular subject at this time until that work is finished. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much for that answer, Councillor Clark, but I'm really keen that we don't commit to any of these projects unless we're sure the business cases are still robust. We have, if you remember, Bermuda Bridge, which you were in charge of when you were county, went ahead and overspent massively. I don't want that repeated, so can I have your assurance we'll actually take it to a scrutiny committee before contracts are signed, so that we can be reassured as opposition councillors that it has a robust business case at the time of signing. Because we do know a lot of these things get rent-free periods and all sorts of things, so things can start up and then go belly up, and we don't want that to happen. So I'll just repeat again, can we have your reassurance it'll go to scrutiny before we cannot turn back?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor Condacor knows, it is the Cabinet who make the decisions in relation to the delivery of these projects, and I am sure that they will look on all the finances before any contracts are signed. In relation to coming back to overview and scrutiny, it will come back to overview and scrutiny at the correct time, and I'll ensure that I can give them assurance that that will be the case, but only then when it's appropriate to do so and we have the full financial information that is relevant for the scrutiny panel to consider. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Question number 3, we have Councillor Graham Morton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council. The Liberal Dem South Cambridgeshire Council is currently experimenting with a 4-day working week for its council officers, but it still pays them for 5 days. I understand that this idea is also being promoted by some opposition councillors a bit closer to home. Can the leader of the council confirm the position of this Conservative administration to implementing this experiment in Nuneaton and Bedworth? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm glad that Councillor Condacor actually waved his hand and fessed up to being in support of a 4-day working week and paying people for a 5-day week. And I thank Councillor Morton for this question, as it gives me an opportunity to set the record straight on our position. In plain English, Mr Mayor, the answer is a definite no. I must confess that I find the whole concept of working a 4-day week on a 5-day pay to be quite bonkers. The idea that you can get 100% pay for 80% work is absolutely absurd. Under this Conservative administration, we will never agree to any proposal to reduce officers to a 4-day working week. Residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth deserve to be able to access services every day of the week in every department. Any experiment with a 4-day week would put this at risk. If officers wish to work a 4-day week, they can do so under existing flexible working arrangements, just like many other residents do in their world of work. 1, a compressed week to do 5 days work in 4. meaning they will still be paid for 37 hours per week. That does actually work for some people because it enables them to fit in with their caring responsibilities. Or 2, work 4 days a week and get paid for 4 days a week. I think that is the fairest arrangement for residents of this borough, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Moving forward, question number 4, Councillor Joy Coventry-Morton.
Last week, we saw the close of the magnificent Knife Angel project in the borough. Can the portfolio holder give me some information on the impact the Knife Angel has had in the borough so far?
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Councillor Golby, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question. Yeah, how to round up a month in a few minutes. So just before I go into any details on this, it's to get the view out there that we knew the Knife Angel coming to town wasn't instantly going to stop violence in the borough. And we did have a few issues while it was here. There's no getting away from that, and I've said that while I was out there on the rounding up ceremony. And I also pointed out that some people were actually almost gleeful at revelling in the fact that we've had issues since the Knife Angel came, and that again says more about them than it does about us. But the statue was built to inspire change, and change does not happen overnight. We recognised this, and we used it for a catalyst for conversation, education and reflection. And it sometimes feels like we've constantly got a stream of negativity through local news channels and on social media, where everybody's doom and gloom, talking the place down. Every time there's an article goes up, the comment section is filled up with people with nothing better to say than negativity. And you cannot affect a positive change with a negative mindset. So we've got to change our mindset. So on that note, I'm actually going to point out some real positives of the Knife Angel. We have had literally thousands of people visiting the town centre and the borough to see the Knife Angel. And they've come from all parts of the country. I know people that have come from Leeds. I know people that have come from my side of the Pennines. I know people that have come from down south to see the Knife Angel. Specifically, that has been the draw to bring them to town. So footfall in the town this year alone has risen over 30% on this time last year. So we've done an equivalent balance, and we can actually quantify that. We know from speaking to shop traders that they've benefited from the increased footfall. I certainly know the ice cream man's been doing a roaring trade. The traders on the market have also told us that they have been doing really well out of the fact that the Knife Angel has been there. We've had over 2,500 people come to our communities and Nabscott market stalls on Wednesdays and Saturdays, which was manned by the team from the communities department. We've given away over nearly 1,000 community safety packs on the market stall. We've had 35 engagements with hard-to-reach young people, and that might not sound a lot, but when we've spent so long trying to get contact with these people, these youths mainly, and it's been a flat no. And then to get 35 of those kids to engage with us within the space of a month is a fantastic achievement, and we're going to keep building on that. They were very reluctant to get involved with us before. We've had 2 parent awareness sessions, and this is really important as well. We're not just targeted the kids with this, we've actually gone through the whole life cycle of the problem. So the parent awareness sessions were really important. They were delivered by Alison Cope, who is the mother of Joshua Ribera, who was murdered in Birmingham in 2013. These sessions raised awareness about the correlation between an increase in serious violence, crime, and young people being allowed to use social media. And I've said it time and time again, get your kids off social media, particularly the younger ones. Alison has raised awareness of how criminal gangs actually operate, groom and target young people using games and social media. And it's not something that you would ever imagine, but it happens. Again, do you know who your kids are speaking to online? Within these games, they literally could be speaking to anybody. You need to pay more attention. The sessions are incredibly emotive and powerful. And Alison talks openly about how her son came to be murdered and the impacts of knife crime. For any parent or anybody who is interested to know more, we actually have another session planned with Alison as part of the legacy of the Knife Angel work that's ongoing. We'll do this online to accommodate as many people as possible, and it will be during the school holidays as well, to also try and accommodate as many people as possible. That's one of the things that I said with the Knife Angel. It wasn't just stick it in the town centre and when it's gone, it's gone. There had to be a legacy piece of work on this, and I'm glad to say that actually that's coming true. We're going to go for the other engagements that we've had now. So we've had 1,400 secondary school pupils and 1,600 primary school pupils involved with sessions, taking the message of the Knife Angel directly to them in their place of education. And I need to give a special thanks to PCSO Carly Davis, who has been an absolute trooper on this. And I don't think she ever wants to see the inside of a primary school again, but good job, Carly. She's been through 11 schools in the area, detailing all of the Knife Angel project with the kids. And the in-school engagements has also allowed the local police to informally speak to staff within the school setting to see if they've got any concerns. And this is something that I'm hoping will continue, because informal conversations work really well. For the next part, we've got the Knife Angel. We recognise it's not only an imposing piece of public art, but during the closing ceremony, we had some really fantastic artwork created by local artist N4T4. And I don't know if anybody was at the closing ceremony, but he was just off to the side and he actually did it in real time while we were doing the closing ceremony. And it's a really nice piece of art. And we're gonna find somewhere to rehouse that and put it on public display. We had over 1,600 tags with messages written on them in more than 5 languages, which were attached to the fence surrounding the Knife Angel. And these will also be made into another piece of artwork to provide an ongoing legacy piece of art for the borough. We've not quite decided how we're going to do that yet, but we're getting there. We've got 10 bleed kits, which we use to upgrade the defibs in the borough. And again, we don't necessarily need them, but it's good to have them when you do. If you do. It's not the sort of thing that if you need one and you've not got one. I'd rather just have them, stick them in the defibs and never use them, but know that they're there just in case. So conservative estimates so far, in the last month alone, we've had direct contact and engagement with over 7,000 individuals. This has been a massive effort. I need to say thank you to my team. So the communities team, Rowena, Abu, Tina, Michelle, Lynette, Carol, Director Dawson, the Town Centre's events team. Absolute standout job. Cannot fault them on this at all. Inspector Chris Shaw and Chief Inspector Steve Davis and their teams had huge input with the education piece, with the security, with the funding, with the logistics of actually getting into the borough. They all handled that. It was perfectly done. The Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Deputy PCC, in particular Emma Daniel, who also helped fund the project. Then we go on to the education team. It's a bit like an Oscar speech, this, but I have to get it on the public record to say thank you to these people. Sarah Cox and the education team, and Steve Croshaw, who also works within schools. He was one of the guys that wrote one of the poems that was read out at the closing ceremony. And then Quinton, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Quinton Millais, who also gave a fantastic speech at the closing ceremony as well. Aspiring Arts and the other volunteers, including some councillor, thank you for your time, who actually gave up their time willingly to go and engage with people and take the story of the Knife Angel and do the education piece actually out on the street. And I have to say, without doubt, this is one of the best examples I can think of partnership working within Nuneaton and Bedworth. It's been a really, really fast-paced, high-pressure month, but it's gone perfectly. It's gone without a hitch, and I will just have to say thank you very much to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dolby. Councillor Hammersley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for the Leader of the Council. Announced some time ago that it was the council's plan to rename part of the Rypeace Ringway after Bedworth's fallen hero, Sergeant Simon Valentine. Can the Leader of the Council please update me on the progress of this road name change? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Nuneaton and Bedworth is rightly proud of its links with the armed forces, and many of our residents choose to serve Queen, now King, and country. This means that they are called to put their lives on the line to maintain the peace, freedom and security that we continue to enjoy. Sometimes that can result in one of our own paying the ultimate price. Sergeant Simon Valentine gave all of his tomorrows for our todays, and he paid that price for us. He rightly deserves to be honoured and respected by those of us left behind. That is why I am delighted that our proposal to rename part of Rypeace Ringway as Sergeant Simon Valentine Way has now cleared all of the legal hurdles and will forever stand as a testament to the valour of Sergeant Valentine and indeed his family. I know that the Valentine family are proud that Sergeant Simon Valentine will be permanently remembered in his hometown of Bedworth. By forming part of the official route of the Armistice Day Parade, he will always be part of the tradition that he loved. An official unveiling ceremony is in the process of being organised, and further details, including the date and time, will be announced in due course. Finally, I would also like to pay tribute to Carol Valentine herself and her support for this proposal. She has always worked to keep his memory alive in our borough. This change will ensure that future generations will be able to keep his memory alive long after we all have gone. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Warwickshire County Council has announced it is considering whether to submit a formal request to join the West Midlands Combined Authority. Could the Leader of the Council give an update on what this means for us in Nuneaton and Bedworth?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson would like to respond.
Mr Mayor, I am aware that Warwickshire County Council is considering submitting a formal request to the West Midlands Combined Authority to join as a full constituent member. A paper is due to go to their Cabinet in the next week, and at present I do not know what that paper recommends or contains. Indeed, we've only had it today and I haven't yet chance to read it. One thing is clear. If the County Council is admitted as a full member of the WMCA, then all districts and boroughs within Warwickshire will automatically become members of the Combined Authority. We do not yet know what other implications there will be for us here in Nuneaton and Bedworth, and together with officers we are trying to piece together a better picture of what it means for us. But I must be absolutely clear about the position of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council under this Conservative administration. I have also communicated this to the Leader of Warwickshire County Council and the Mayor of the Combined Authority. We will not agree to any process that will abolish Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council or a unitary council for Warwickshire. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As per the Constitution, I would actually like to propose a motion, not a notice, in relation to the question that's gone. Would you like me to read the motion? Wahida, am I okay to? Yep. So the motion reads as follows. Following the announcement that Warwickshire County Council has indicated it intends to submit a request to join the West Midlands Combined Authority, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, number 1, note the proposals by Warwickshire County Council and is concerned about the lack of information regarding joining the WMCA and what it means for our residents and our council. Number 2, formally requests that the Mayor of the Combined Authority meet with the Leader and Deputy Leader of the Council, Chief Executive and Deputy Chief Executive to discuss the proposals and its implications for our council. Number 3, We resolve that we will not agree to any proposal that would or could lead to the abolition of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council and the creation of a unitary council for Warwickshire. A copy of this resolution is to be sent by the Chief Executive to Warwickshire County Council, the Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority, and the members of Parliament for Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough. And following that, I think there's papers coming out to everybody. Do you want me to hang on for a second? Yeah. So as a sitting member of Warwickshire County Council, I have to say that I'm none the wiser on this either. We got the papers today, as has been said. It's in the public domain. We have to read what's in those papers and digest. And I'm sure there will be plenty of questions coming out of what is in those papers. But as of yet, we haven't really got any information. And we have a lot of twin hatters on our benches, and we're all pretty much aligned on that, I think you can safely say. There is not enough information to make a decision. There is not enough information to support, not support. I have different views. We're a broad church. I am not necessarily against the WMCA. I do some work with them in my personal capacity. So as a functional organisation, I don't necessarily have a problem with them. My absolute no is backdoor unitary for Warwickshire, which I kind of can't get away from the fact that this might be, and I don't have anything to allay those fears, and I will not support that. I don't think it's fair, I don't think it's right, and I think our residents need a say. What I do recall from the brief note on the that we got out today was the timelines of this are extremely quick, and again, not really satisfactory. So on that, do I get to round up as well? I get the right reply. So on that, I will sit down. I will let other people have their say other than write my reply.
Thank you, Councillor Colwyn. Do we have a seconder for that, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. In which case, we shall open it up for debate. Is there any speakers from the floor wish to partake? Yes, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Watkins, follow.
Mr. Mayor, it would be useful if legal could just check we can still take motions in this way, because the Constitution kept getting changed and I didn't know we could still do this. If we can, I'm quite keen to talk about it, because we have lots of issues that mean being in the combined authority can help us, particularly with transport. Anyone who takes a bus anywhere knows how disjointed the services are. Anyone who goes down a cycle route will know that Warwickshire cycle routes don't join up with West Midlands cycle routes. And anyone who knows about climate change will know that although it's not perfect, the combined authority actually acknowledges climate change exists and does have a net zero plan. So there's lots of reasons to go into combined authority. Obviously, we need to protect our interests as a borough so we don't get a loss of control. And obviously, there's things like Civic Hall and local planning decisions which we may want to have an influence on. So we need to have a council for Nuneaton, or Nuneaton and Bedworth, or A5. However things are reorganised, we need a local voice for the parts of Warwickshire north of Coventry. But we do need to move ahead. Things like transport do not stop at boundaries. And it really gets shown up when we haven't got the upgrade for Nuneaton to Coventry rail service. The Bay platform at Coventry was never a priority for the combined authority because it was a service that went outside to Nuneaton and Bedworth. Being part of the combined authority gives us the opportunity to have a voice on that funding and get joined up public transport. And we need it so desperately, if you look at the A444 corridor, to actually join all these things up and give our young people particularly access to the universities at Warwick and Coventry. So I'm really keen we discuss this, we see what's on offer, and I think rather than just say, oh, we're frightened, I think after the county council meeting, I think we need to have a meeting of either a joint scrutiny committee or a meeting of this council, maybe a week after it goes to county, to actually see what we want to do and what we want to ask for. So I would ask the leader, and maybe if the opposition group would agree, that we actually add on to this motion that we actually call an extraordinary council meeting once the county council has decided which way to go. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Watkins, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would have gladly seconded that because, as Councillor Golby has already mentioned, that we've only just really found out about this. It is moving exceptionally fast, and there's no detail. We don't know what we're going to get, how much it's going to cost, if it's going to cost. So I have been in meetings with different people, but there's nothing that I can ask them because there's nothing they can tell me. So we would be signing up for something that we have no detail of, and that would be ludicrous. So we are waiting for answers, and I actually wouldn't mind going for a special meeting once we have some detail, because it could affect all of our residents, but we won't have a say because this all gets decided by Warwickshire County Council. So it is an important issue, and it will affect all the residents of the borough. So it's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other speakers from the floor? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand the rationale for bringing this motion forward. What I would say at the outset is I am a dual member for Warwickshire County Council and the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, and I understand there is more information and more further meetings to come, and I intend to attend those meetings and absorb that information before making any decision in relation to how we proceed within the Nuneaton and Bedworth. But at the moment, I must say, we need to make sure that the Nuneaton and Bedworth is protected insofar as we are able. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Croft, you indicated.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I shall throw some comments in, and I have the luxury of not being a twin hatter, so I can say what I like. I will echo what I said at Cabinet last year, Mr Mayor, which is that we do not and should not make very substantive changes to the structure of government in this country in a rush without due consideration. It's 50 years since we had a change like is being proposed to the structure of government. All right up there. To the structure of governance in this county, with the establishment of the two-layer district system. I've had a cursory glance at the report going to County Council today. They're suggesting that they're pushing for a decision by October. We should be thinking in terms of the next half a century, not in terms of what needs to happen by October if they want to make a change by the West Midlands Combined Authority election in May. I think it's in a 3-year term this time. So I would caution my colleagues at the County Council before rushing in. There are huge implications for all layers of government in this county if we were to make this change. I believe, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, that there aren't actually two-layer authorities in the West Midlands Combined Authority. That, by its very nature, reopens the unitary debate in terms of costs to us, in terms of the practicality of having 3 or some cases 4 layers of government across the county. And I'm afraid I'm not going to support that kind of decision on trust. We have to think in terms of the next half a century, and we have to think in terms of what is best for the residents of this borough, what is in the interests of this borough, and whether or not the West Midlands Combined Authority actually does anything that reflects our priorities. So, Mr Mayor, I would urge caution and scepticism. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Any other comments? Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have to agree with Councillor Golby that we have only seen it today, like everybody else. There's a lot of information, but it doesn't say anything. So there's pages, but when you read it, it doesn't mean anything. So we really need to know what's going on before they can make a decision on our behalf. They have said in amongst it that there's going to be consultation, but if it wants to be passed by October, that's not going to be very much consultation there. So I think we really need to speak at the meetings that we're attending next week to see what's actually going on. But I do think that it's coming in far too fast.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of the points I wanted to raise have already been mentioned, so I will keep it brief. I'd agree that this decision seems to be coming around far too quickly. Members here, members at Warwick, do need to be consulted fully, and for it to take months you could count on one hand to have a decision the likes of which we haven't seen for decades. So I'd urge my colleagues at the County Council to really consider what they're doing, and for members here to resolve today not to agree to any decision that would abolish this borough and create a unitary authority at Warwickshire level. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from the floor? Not seeing anything else. Councillor Wilson. Yes. Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been quite a whirlwind 10 days in actually trying to figure out what is going on with this proposal to take Warwickshire County Council into the combined authority. In fact, I had my regular meeting with the Chief Executive. Everything was proceeding quite nicely in our meetings. Then 2 hours later, I dropped a bombshell on him, having had a phone call after that, and I don't think we've really stopped since in trying to work out what this means for Nuneaton and Bedworth. What this motion seeks to do tonight, Mr. Mayor, is lay a red line quite clearly to all those who are looking at this at the moment, both at the combined authority, at Shire Hall, and indeed the Minister, if he is listening. I hope he will take note of local feelings, because it has to go before Parliament as well. That we in Nuneaton and Bedworth will not agree to anything which abolishes us as a council. We have to have some red lines in this, otherwise there is no purpose in us sitting here tonight as representatives of the people of Nuneaton and Bedworth. We have to remember, Mr. Mayor, that Warwickshire is a contrasting county, to put it politely. If you look at the 22 lower super output areas, the areas of greatest deprivation in Warwickshire, 17 of those 22, and I've said this before, 17 are in Nuneaton and Bedworth. And if anything is to try and change to make that better, I want to make damn sure, Mr. Mayor, that whatever change happens is for the best. And I am not convinced on current evidence that that will happen. Let us be honest as borough councillors. When we get contacted by residents, how many times are we actually contacted about county issues? It might be a bit different for the Twin Hatters, but actually they don't contact their county councillor most of the time. They see our names up in the library, or they type Nuneaton Council and come up with our names and contact us as borough councillors about their issue. That is because we are the closest to them, and I believe that situation should continue, because this is about democracy. This isn't about people, as in persons in their positions. This is about the right structures to serve our residents. And I believe that in Nuneaton and Bedworth, we do have that connection locally, and on the whole, we have struck the correct balance, that those areas which need strategic joining up at the top tier, like education, like transport, probably does suit the county council. I would actually prefer a metropolitan borough, but I know that is never going to happen. But the things which matter locally to local people, parks, planning, refuse, all those issues which people think are the bread and butter of us as local democratically elected representatives, those are the things that matter. So this is about sending a clear message to those who are considering this, and that yes, I will consider a meeting later on, but once we've got more facts. This is about sending our intent now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Colby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we've all kind of got the same feelings on this. Nobody is comfortable with the amount of information that is currently available to us. And the timescales, you're right, the timescales are October. If you look on the cabinet papers that have been released from the County Council today, it does actually say that government has indicated that Warwickshire should Warwickshire wish to proceed, it would be imperative that the council is in a position to submit an application, including a summary of consultation responses in early October. That's not enough time for me. It's not enough time for the residents to actually digest what the implications are, and the conversations need to continue. There's also queries, again, that have been raised. If you look, I'm just scrolling. 4.9. Potential benefits need to be considered alongside the potential risks to Warwickshire, such as the powers in relation to key functions, transport, housing and skills, being taken at a regional rather than a local level, and the risk that Warwickshire is unable to access appropriate share of the funding being devolved from government. Now, I know that there's going to be a piece of work at Warwickshire County Council to try and get more information. However, what about here? What about us? I'm a twin hatter. We've got a few twin hatters. I will be wearing my Nuneaton and Bedworth hat on this conversation because it's where I live. It's where I represent, and so be it. And I'm not going to do us a detriment to keep people elsewhere happy. That's not really my thing. So I just think that we need to be more involved in this process than we are. I don't feel like we're being considered. And no disrespect to anybody that is involved in this process currently at the County Council, but actually, if you've got no skin in the game, I don't really think you should take primacy on decision making. I think it needs to come locally. We definitely need to have some sort of overview on this because it's going to affect our residents. And whilst I agree on the transport thing, you know, cheaper bus tickets is not something that is going to be a massive deal breaker for a lot of people. It might be for some, but I think you've got to look at the entirety of this. This is a major shift in government locally. There's implications across the board. And like I say, even if we were just lifted and shifted into the WMCA, again, no problem with the WMCA, work with them quite successfully. But if you lift and shift Warwickshire, we would be the only county in Warwickshire with lower tier authorities. How are the other authorities in the WMCA going to take that? Because they're all single tier. How is that going to affect the process of governance? Do we get a say in things at the table? Does Warwickshire speak for everybody? Warwickshire is like Councillor Wilson has said, Warwickshire is a very different county, north and south, and we actually work around that fairly well in most instances. But in this, when you add another layer on top of that, how is it going to look? Nobody's got the answer, and yet there's an October timescale, an October deadline. It's not enough, nowhere near enough. And I'd like some conversations with it, as you say, and that's what this motion is about, is to kind of draw a line in the sand and set out our stall and say this is what we want, and respectfully, collegiately, hopefully we'll get it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. On that basis, can we take on board the recommendation that we look at a following meeting, as Councillor Wilson suggested, that would be appropriate when we have more information to share from the county councillors?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think that needs to be part of the resolution at this stage, because that can be requested by myself in conjunction with the Chief Executive at the right time.
In which case we shall take a recorded vote on the motion. Oh, oh, sorry. Okay. You ready?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If councillors could indicate when I call out their name whether they're for the motion, against the motion, or whether they wish to abstain. Councillor Baxter-Payne. Councillor Beetham is not with us. Councillor Brown. Councillor Cape? Councillor Clark? Councillor Cooper? Councillor Coventry Morton? Councillor Croft? Councillor Kovacevic? Councillors Downs and Evans are not with us tonight. Councillor Golby? Councillor Green? Councillor Guttridge? Councillor Hamsley? Councillor Harbison? Councillor Harsawners have to leave the meeting. Councillor Kenner? Councillor Condacor? Councillor Markham? Councillor Morton? Councillor Pandair? Councillor Phillips is not with us this evening. Councillor Jill Shepherd? Councillor Tracy Shepherd? Councillor Shires? Councillor Singh? Councillor Smith? Both Councillor Tremors are not with us this evening. Councillor Walsh? Councillor Watkins? Councillor Wilson? And Councillor Wright. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That motion is carried.
Thank you. Apologies there again, sorry. We move forward into item 8, special matters.
Councillor Wright's question.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my fault. Yes, we have one further question. Apologies there. Councillor Wright, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question has to a certain extent been overtaken by events, so I trust it's okay if I rephrase the question slightly. Thank you. Right, okay. Given that heat waves such as the one we have experienced recently are likely to become more common, what plans are there to replace the seating in the town centre that was lost when the fountain was removed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wilson to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I invite Councillor Wright to walk down the road and see for himself.
Thank you. In which case we'll move supplementary.
Yes, so, as I was saying previously, my question has been overtaken by events to a certain extent, and the replacement benches that have been erected, although not fully replacing the seating that was lost when the fountain was removed, are nevertheless a welcome first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. In which case we move forward to item... Oh, okay. That was a statement, fair comment, but I accept it. Councillor Wilson. Yes, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Wright is right in regards it is the first step in one critical fact, that it enables us to actually do what we said before, which is create an event space in the heart of Nuneaton Town Centre, which will enable us to have far more events in the future. Just look at the success that we had with the Knife Angel, which would not be half as successful, or possibly not even doable, without the space created by getting rid of that eyesore, which we had, which didn't work, cost us money, and actually once they dug it out, they found raw sewage underneath because it wasn't capped off properly when it was originally installed, and found the original double yellow lines underneath. So it wasn't laid properly in the first place. So let's celebrate the fact that we've had a great success and look forward to the possibilities that it affords us in having great entertainment in the town centre, which the new Assistant Director for the Economy is actually in the process of designing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We move forward then to item number 8, matters of special urgency. We have one item that has been raised as a matter of special undertaking under the Local Development Scheme timetable, which was brought before Cabinet on the 21st of June, and this is particularly just for noting purposes. It is actually on the agenda as item number 11. Thank you. Item number 9, Report from Cabinet. You should all have the report from the Cabinet. It is once again for noting, but we'll take any questions relative to the Leader of the Council, if anybody has a question from those notes. Councillor, sorry.
I think yourself, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Shepherd could start your own club with regards to that machine over the past couple of weeks. In presenting the report, Mr Mayor, I'm more than happy to try and answer, or members of my Cabinet are also more than happy to try and answer any questions, but I would like to draw members' attention to a couple of things which are on here. I won't go on about the development scheme because that's a substantive item, but we have the work on the Museum and Art Gallery, about being able to finally take that forward now we have secured the relevant funding for phase 1, and that will be able to move forwards, and officers are progressing that in terms of re-engaging with the REBA stages and the developers on that. I know that Councillor Golby has been particularly keen on the flexible tenancies, which will actually enable us to marry people to properties in a much better way and keep them refreshed and suitable to their existing conditions. At the moment, we have lifetime tenancies, which may be suitable if you have a family in a family home, but as you get older and the children eventually, hopefully some people would say, leave the nest. My nan might say that. But you won't necessarily need a 3-bedroom house if you are on your own, and we have families we know who are in desperate need of family homes, and that is a project which Councillor Golby has been leading on. And I was really happy to present the proposals under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which will see over the next 2 years almost, well, just short of, because we've already done year 1, just short of £4 million worth of investment in our borough, both in terms of physical assets, local facilities, but also jobs and key skills. But I am happy, along with other members, to try and answer any questions members have.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This question's for Councillor Markham about the Civic Hall update, which we had called in, I think it was last week. At that call-in, we established from you that there was a heads of terms agreement being drawn up, and then that heads of terms was actually presented to the Cabinet in some private form or whatever, it wasn't at the Cabinet meeting. And it would be useful if Councillor Markham could give us some clarity on when that heads of terms was presented to various bodies, how it has been changed, if at all. And importantly, it wasn't clear if it was heads of terms to lease the Civic Hall, i.e. sort of heads of terms about leasing a building, or it was a heads of terms to provide a service, i.e. put on shows and etc. So if it would be very useful if Councillor Markham could clarify the generic what type of heads of terms it is, obviously without giving away any confidential information. And finally, if it would be useful to know when the bidders can see the heads of terms, because that process was supposed to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you. The Cabinet members that saw the heads of terms were the portfolio holders that it covered. It was just so that we could see it, to see if we were happy with it. We were happy with it. It is for a lease, because that's what we've said all along. It was for a lease. As soon as we actually publish the documents, they can have a look at them. But until we can get the process going, it's been halted by the call-in. It will now go to Cabinet. If it's agreed at the next Cabinet, the following day, all the documents that they need will be published on the site, and they can have a look at it. But they can't see it until we've passed it. And we can't pass it because people keep putting blocks on it.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Councillor Condacor, is that supplementary?
Yeah, supplementary on that. I don't know why I had to go to Cabinet, because the calling failed effectively. So if you could explain that. And secondly, if it's a lease for a building, you said at scrutiny my cycle shop wasn't allowed to go in the Civic Hall because of the heads of terms. Well, if it's just leasing the building, my cycle shop can go in the Civic Hall. So can I just have a bit of clarity on that? Thank you.
Councillor Markham.
as part of the lease of terms, it states what can be done in there, and I'd said to you the other day, it couldn't be your cycle shop.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions relating to the Cabinet report from members? Councillor Condacott, is this a different question? Thank you.
It's on the agenda later, but this is a question for Councillor Smith, because you can't ask questions when it comes up later. On the local development scheme update, we don't seem to have in the borough plan stuff for the new update anything like what Warwick has in terms of its net zero. Can you clarify if it's going ahead with all the climate change stuff missing about solar panels, etc.? Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, I can't actually answer that here, but I will get back to you. I'll do a bit of groundwork and come back to you on that particular one.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions relating to the Cabinet report? Councillor Condacott, another one, different question?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's a different question. On the West Midlands Combined Authority, on the back page, it's a report about the transport governance, which is the second paragraph on the back page. Are we getting anywhere at the West Midlands Combined Authority for the Bay platform at Coventry? Because that is a serious governance lapse that we've put money in as a county to get the Bay platform at Coventry for Knuckle, and it isn't happening. So I'd like to know if it's being raised at the West Midlands Combined Authority. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Condacott knows, we are not the Transport Authority, so it is not within our remit to consider anything with transport in that regard. And also, Coventry's platform station is Coventry's platform station, not ours. Now, it may have economic benefits to other areas of Warwickshire, particularly probably more the south than us, but that is a decision for County Council and not us. What the Combined Authority has done is actually set up a separate Transport Overview and Scrutiny Commission and divorce that more or less from the existing general Overview and Scrutiny Commission that it has and devoted one to transport. That is what effectively happened at the Combined Authority. I wasn't actually there because I had work commitments, but Councillor Smith went, but from the papers that I read and discussions I've been involved in previously, that is the only change which is happening at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other questions relating to the Cabinet report? Councillor Shepherd. Thank you.
Questions for the portfolio holder for public services, and it's in regard to the Civic Hall. Can I ask why the third sector model was not used in the next document and when it will be taken into consideration? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you. The third sector model, what we've done is we have followed a procedure right the way through. It started off with us actually saying that we couldn't reopen the Civic Hall. Following that, the procedure was we went to the EOI, which took us to the end of January. There were two applicants for that, whether it's a third sector model or not. There was two applicants. We put them both through because they both fitted the model that we'd got. Then after that, it went to the process of us saying whether we wanted lease or procurement or to sell it. We went along the lease route. That again takes us to a different process whereby we have to dispose of the venue with the best value because it's an asset. So that is the section, that's what we're doing at the moment. We're following the Local Government Act because that's what we're required to do. And as soon as we can get it going, again, the timescales that people are moaning about are again part of that process. So we followed it all the way through to be fair and transparent to both parties.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Councillor Shepherd, further question?
It is. It's on what Councillor Malcolm has just said. So in terms of the third sector model and community centres, which you said are community assets, can I ask why procurement hasn't been followed with the community centres if you're following it for the Civic Hall as a community asset? I'm happy if you want to put it down in writing to send it to me, because you might need to speak to the officers, I don't know.
Do you wish to respond? Councillor Markham.
Yeah, it's a totally different process, and at the end of the day I wasn't involved in that process, but it's totally different. One's a community centre and one is an asset, but it's a valuable asset. It's not just a community centre, so that's why I'm assuming that's why it's not been followed. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Any other question? Councillor Shepherd, a further question?
Councillor Markham. It's to Councillor Wilson. Can I ask Councillor Wilson if we have all the funding that's needed for the museum redevelopment, and when the new bridge leading to the museum will be in place?
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We do have all the funding available for the museum and the works to be done to Riversley Park. That is why the report itself was taken to Cabinet to sign it off to progress to the next stages. We wouldn't and couldn't do that until we were absolutely confident that we could afford what we were about to commit to. We are re-engaging the designers and the construction company. So at the present, I can't give an exact date because we have to go through the correct procurement processes, as you've just highlighted, Councillor Shepherd, and also go through the correct REBA process as well. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to break ground in this financial year now that we've managed to overcome those hurdles, and they will do the phasing of it accordingly, whether it's the bridge first and then the museum or whatever. They will do that in the most cost-effective and logical way possible, because obviously we have a very tight financial envelope to work to.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Condacor, supplementary or further question?
Just a further question about the museum. Will the museum still be closed for 12 months while the work is ongoing? And have you followed up the idea of having a temporary museum in some other building whilst it's closed?
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It feels like Groundhog Day again, because I went through this at Cabinet. What we are talking about isn't just sticking up a cupboard, replacing a door. This is a wholesale regeneration of the museum, because it is starting to show its age, and it needs great work doing to it, including the fact that the lift is almost out of action. It's probably on its last legs. You do not want visitors traipsing through a building site. That is essentially what this will be. A carefully managed business building site, because we will have certain artefacts in there and parts of the collection which are exceptionally valuable, to not just in terms of cost, but also in terms of what they mean to residents of the borough. And we do not want some great big workman with his size 12s putting his foot in part of the George Eliot collection. Any idea that we should do that is quite frankly preposterous, Mr Mayor, and would probably actually take longer and add cost to the development. So the safest, securest and most logical way is to shut the place down for 12 months. Let's get everyone else out of the way, focus on the works which need doing, so that we can reopen it as quickly and as safely as we possibly can. And Councillor Markham is working with her officers to see what parts of the collection, and we have to be very careful about this because of insurances and the value of the works, etc., which can come out of the museum. But things like the talks which they put on, those aren't things which depend upon the museum itself. It's a nice venue to do so, but as we did prove with the George Eliot Society a few months ago, this chamber works perfectly well as an auditorium and for a place to hold talks, and if that is something we can do to help keep those talks alive which residents enjoy, then we will do so. But I will not, Mr Mayor, endanger any of our works of art or collections just for the sake of one minority voice who doesn't actually understand the principles we're talking about.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's no other questions, we shall move forward then. We move forward to item number 10 on the agenda, the Serious Violence Duty Report. Present that by Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, this came to Cabinet, I think, was it a couple of weeks ago? Yeah. It's quite a meaty piece of documentation, so I will invite people to read it if they really want to get a better understanding. It's not something that I'm going to be able to look at this immediate, within the space of time that I've got now. It would take me quite some time. Everybody all right? I would like to point to point 3.5, which is kind of an overview of what the serious violence duty is. And this has been brought in by government legislation, so it's not us that are deciding to do this, but we are willing participants. So it says that it's recognised that serious violence has a devastating impact on the lives of victims and families and instills fear within communities and is extremely costly to society. Incidents of serious violence involving knives and other weapons has increased significantly, with regular media broadcasts of young people sustaining life-changing injuries or death as a result. The duty is a key part of the government's programme to work to collaborate and plan to prevent and reduce serious violence, taking a multi-agency approach to understand the causes and consequences of serious violence, focusing on prevention and early intervention, and informed by evidence. Now, I think that actually plays very well into what we've just had in the borough. And I'm quite happy to put this on and to ask somebody. Where's Councillor Wilson gone? Can you second this? We're just got something's going on. So yeah, so like I say, it's a pretty meaty document. It's shared across the 5 districts and boroughs, with a lead authority being the County Council. And I would like to recommend this motion and hopefully find a seconder. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. Okay, Councillor Croft. Okay, thank you very much. Any councillors wish to ask any questions relating to the report or speak on the matter? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to say. This was discussed well at Cabinet. I think one thing is important: to these things aren't just pretty documents on bookshelves. We have a very serious problem with serious violence in this town, and it has got out of hand. So I do hope we do everything possible we can to try and work as a team and get the figures down. The other interesting thing was, I asked people do read the document, because there's lots of stats and things in, and in there it actually mentioned 6 what they call lower super output areas, which are very small areas in Warwickshire, which have had the biggest increase. And that actually tends to be, particularly for Wellington, St Nicholas, areas where there's new housing. And I think there's a lot of housing related problems as well, particularly with the people getting moved into social housing or whatever. Yeah, it's not always the traditional areas. We've got massive problems in the traditional areas with serious violence, but it's not just in those areas. So I will support this, and I hope we actually do something, and it's not just another one of these documents that sits on the shelf of some officer's office.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I am wearing my yellow for last week, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, the Labour Group are in full support of this, and it's something that is needed. And it's good to see in here that there will be referral pathways, and there will be a lead officer designated to that. So that is good. It would also, I'm presuming it will be in that sort of part where it'll be referrals for addictions. And what I have been going on about for years and years now is that people are referred for addictions as such as gambling, and it's not just looked at as drug and alcohol. Comes at a particularly good time, because yesterday I was sent some videos of some serious violent crime that was going on in our town centre, and people from inside the pub was videoing people attacking the pub. and you could clearly see that they had knives in their hand and was about to commit some serious violent crime. If nobody's aware of that, I don't mind showing the videos after, so it might be something you want to take up later. But yeah, in full support of that, and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Any other member wish to speak? No. Okay. You wish to speak? No? Yeah, indeed, Councillor.
Yeah. Can I just... I find this really frustrating. We don't live in the Bronx. We live in quite a nice part of Warwickshire, believe it or not. And there is always a focus on bad news. Now, I am not saying we don't have a few bad apples. We do. We all know that. But please, can we stop letting them spoil the entire crop? The serious violence duty is here. I know that. But to listen to some of the conversations sometimes about how there's crime, and I mean, you cannot blame, I'm sorry, but coming from, a kid from a council estate, you can't paint all of them as bad. You really can't. Again, there's some bad apples. I know that because we're clearing ours out. And that's been a specific target of mine. But to say that everybody, to try and paint everybody with the same brush is not really right. The thing that you're talking about as well, going back, there were actually councillors in said pub. I will also say there's more to it than meets the eye. So again, the face value of everything, when it gets blasted all over social media, there's often, I wouldn't say mitigating circumstances, but there is an explanation, yes. There is an explanation. I'll kind of talk to you about that afterwards if you want. But the duty is that we try and improve our area. And since I've taken over the portfolio, that is been one of the key things I have tried to do within our own housing stock, within our partner agencies' housing stock, working really closely with the police and the criminal justice system where possible. And it's not something that is lost on me. Honestly, it's not. But we also need to focus on the positives as well. There's a lot of good work goes on, and it just gets overshadowed by negativity. So can we flip the script a little bit and try and put a positive outlook on things sometimes? I don't disagree. I don't disagree. We have people. But the majority of the issues that are caused in this town are by a small minority of people. That I can tell you. And that there are operations in place. There was an operation, certainly a police operation during the period of the Knife Angel, where there were several people targeted, and those people have been lifted. They know who these people are. It's a case of getting round and doing the right ops. And this all focuses and hones in on a more collegiate approach, and yet we are getting more people in to service this within the communities team, because again, one of the main priorities of me was, if we are going to do this, then we need the backup in the team, because Lord knows they could do the work twice the work that they already do, and that is recognised, and that is something that is being done. The team has been completely restructured to accommodate the asks that we've put on. The policy decisions that have come out of this leadership are being accommodated. We are reflecting that in the council structure. We're reflecting that in the work that we do, and this is part of that. So I just want to stop the negativity, and I accept that there are things that do go on, but there are a lot of positive things that never see the light of day, and they really, really need to start being spoken about. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. I would endorse that in all fairness. It's always the minority that seems to get the publicity instead of the majority. And in this instance regarding issues of violence, etc., it's by far the minority who's causing the problem. And so I fully endorse on what you just said. Can we then take this to a vote to accept this policy? All in favour? Any against? Abstentions? I believe that to be a unanimous. Thank you. Moving forward to item number 11A, which is the Local Development Scheme Update Timetable. I call upon Councillor Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Local Development Scheme, or LDS as I'll refer to it, is a project plan. It sets out the timetable for the development plan documents that will form the basis of the Council's local development plan, and they're being revised as part of the Borough Plan Review. The LDS has two main functions. One, it identifies the current planning policy documents that are being applied in the borough. And two, it provides a 3-year project plan that outlines what the replacement planning policy documents will be and the different stages of their preparation. The LDS also refers to the Gypsy and Traveller Site Allocations Development Plan document, which is a fantastic piece of work by planning officers that will, for the first time, demonstrate that we've satisfied the need for traveller sites right across the borough. And as a result of having no unmet need, we'll be able to challenge inappropriate gypsy and traveller sites should they occur. The Gypsy and Traveller document is currently being examined by the Inspectorate and requires some main modifications, so it will require further public consultation before we can approve it. This timetable, therefore, also needs to be updated, and this is included within this LDS. Members may recall extending timelines on several previous occasions due to delays mainly from the delay in production of the sub-regional Housing and Economic Development Needs Assessment, and more recently the delay in the Strategic Transport Assessment and other items required from third parties outside of our control. It's in everyone's interest that we not only deliver a first-class borough plan, but deliver it as fast as possible. So, to that end, I'm taking every opportunity available to bring forward the submission of our revised plan to the Inspectorate for consideration at the earliest date and within this calendar year. I'd like to take time to highlight the excellent work delivered by the planning policy team to make this review of the plan possible in record time. You may recollect the current plan was 10 years in the making and was widely condemned by our residents as third rate. Our 2021 manifesto promised to start an immediate review of the borough plan, something we delivered on, and now just over 2 years later we're closing in on the submission of the revised plan to the Inspectorate by the end of this year. That's an amazing feat, and I would like to publicly thank my team for their continued high standard of hard work to meet the challenges that I constantly set them. You'll see on page 47 there are 2 tables showing the proposed timeline for both the Borough Plan Review and the Gypsy and Traveller Site Allocations DPD. So the recommendations are as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Do I have a seconder for that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I shall now open it for to debate. Any member wish to speak on the matter? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, the good news, we're making progress on the travellers' parts. I must say it's good to actually finally get that moving to some conclusion. You talk about having a first-rate borough plan, though, and today we had the paperwork for next week's borough plan meeting. So I was able to look at the bones of the plan very quickly, and it clearly is not a first-rate plan. It's not a third-rate plan. It has some notable improvements, and the reducing the housing target will have some benefit if the inspector lets you do it the way you want. But it has massive holes as well. In terms of climate change, Monday this week was the world's hottest recorded day as a planet. we really have a plan here that is not tackling climate change. We have a sewage system that is totally failing. Yesterday, the planning committee approved housing which will drive into a sewage works. It does not work already. The existing plan said we need to look at upgrading that sewage works, and the planning committee ignored it. So we have massive problems, and I would far rather have a first-rate plan, that lasts for 10 or 15 or 20 years, that produce the right amount of housing, actually produce real sustainable housing. I mean, yesterday was a good example of how our planning system is broken. Our borough plan says provide a cycle link from Bulkington to Bedworth, which is quite sensible. The reality is we're going to pay for a feasibility study which will do absolutely nothing. We are building unsustainable and dangerous communities that take no account of the infrastructure we need. And then we talked earlier about the combined authority and this Bay platform in Coventry, which we do need to get 2 trains an hour from Coventry to Nuneaton. The borough plan mentions it. It mentions an aspiration for 2 trains an hour with no way of achieving it. What we need is a plan that only allows developers build more housing if we get given the sewage works, the extra train services, and if we're building them away from the Nuneaton and Bedworth cores, we need those cycle links. We should not be doing yet another borough plan that expects people to cycle from Bulkington to Bedworth down a B road with no cycle route. So this is a 2-2 borough plan, and we would do so much better if we had proposed a first-class one. It will get less opposition and be looking forward to the future. So I'm most disappointed. The officers have actually kindly said they'd have a Teams meeting with me tomorrow so I can go through some questions. But so far, I'm very nervous about this plan. And the timetable is ridiculous. If you look at page 64, which is the old plan, and 52, which is the new timescale, you've moved the dates along but not moved the end date. That's classic project planning when you actually aren't going to achieve something on time. You just move all the dates, but you keep the end date the same. I can't see that working. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Connell. Councillor Smith, do you wish to respond? Oh, sorry. Councillor Wilson. Is there any other debates? Any other questions? I didn't see any hands. Councillor Wilson.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor, I was actually writing some notes. I'm actually quite surprised from the intervention from Councillor Condacor. I think it is the first time ever, and we do have it recorded on tape for posterity, he has acknowledged, quote, reducing the housing target. Now, cabinet after cabinet meeting, council after council, he has said that this review of the borough plan does not reduce the housing target, it is increasing it. I think it was only for the fact that I actually had to go into great considerable depth at Cabinet to explain that once our borough plan expires, as it currently is, in 2031, are they suddenly going to stop developing houses between 2031 and 2039? I've got more chance of winning the London Marathon, Mr. Mayor. And those odds are very, very slim. He talks about wanting a first-class borough plan, and I agree with him, and I think we have gone and moved heaven and earth to get where we are, and I know that Councillor Smith has been on at them like a taskmaster, and they have taken that challenge to heart and produced an exceptional piece of work. But I find it absolutely galling, Mr. Mayor, that he stands there and criticises the work of what's going on and what's in the borough plan, when in February he stood there and proposed cutting the budget for the borough plan review to virtually nothing. Where does he think the reports are going to come from for his cycle links? Where does he think the reports are going to come from for his sewage works? Where does he think the reports are going to come from about housing targets? They need money, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't grow on trees. We have to provide that budget so we can do the work to revise the plan to fix the problems that we inherited in 2021. Now, this plan should have been in place a lot earlier. That was because the inspector said in 2019 in his report that it should be reviewed no later than 2021. What did the council do under Labour when that report came through? The answer, Mr. Mayor, is nothing. We picked it up from a virtual standing stop and got it to the position that we are in today, which will see the housing target be reduced from over 820 dwellings per year, which is actually closer to 1,000 when you factor in the under-delivery that we've got, because whatever we don't deliver in certain years, we have to move forward and reprofile into future years. So we're talking closer to 1,000 houses per year up to 2031. And if we don't have a plan beyond 2031, the presumption will be we carry on with 820 odd houses per year. We get down to 520 odd. 545, thank you, Councillor Smith. That is a significant reduction in the housing that we have to provide. It far more reflects our needs in this borough and the aspirations of this borough to actually level up with the rest of Warwickshire and the rest of the West Midlands. And as for cycle links, yes, they're nice, but I actually ask residents and councillors present today, you look at the cycle lanes that we have across the borough, who actually uses them? Because very, very few people, when I drive about, when I'm going between work and wherever I have to go, very few people use them. They are a very expensive vanity project, Mr. Mayor. And if you look at the one on the Kenilworth Road in Leamington, it's larger than one of the carriageways itself. I certainly won't be signing up to anything like that in Nuneaton and Bedworth, where our roads are already congested to high heaven as it is. So I commend this report to the Council, Mr. Mayor, because it delivers on a central promise we made in 2021 that we would review the borough plan. And we haven't just done that by moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. We have actually done that by building it from the ground up so it is watertight and will last longer than the mess that we inherited, Mr. Mayor. So I think this is a first-class effort from a first-class team and deserves the support of the entire chamber, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. In which case, do you wish to respond, Councillor Smith?
Not a lot to add to that, actually. I've got my notes here and it's pretty much covered all of it. I am sick and tired of people critiquing the planning team, who actually are outstanding. They are outstanding. Constantly repeating a warped view of the world and planning's place in it does not make it correct. You can say it as many times as you like. Just today, Councillor Condacourt has been on social media complaining that, on a Facebook post, complaining that our application approval rate is 94%. And he labelled that as appalling. And his view on that was, we're just passing anything through just willy-nilly. Actually, if you twist that on its head, it's a good example that a realistic view on that statistic would say it's excellent and down to the hard work of our very qualified officers working hard with the applicants to make sure the applications are the best they can be. So when the decision is actually made, we're able to pass more of them. So it's not a negative, but he always puts a negative twist on it, which isn't fair to the staff, it's demoralising, and I wish he'd stop it. It's just another example of his depressing view of the world around him, and always negative and twisting the truth to suit his agenda. And I'm fed up with it, quite honestly. This is a fantastic borough plan review. It is first class, and I recommend approval to the council.
Okay, carry on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very disturbed that we keep getting criticised after I've had my chance to speak. It is not. I have not criticised the officers. The officers are doing what the policy is of the administration.
Councillor Smith.
Your Facebook post today was a clear critique of the planning team, and it's not good enough, and it's not good for you to stand there and deny it. You constantly do it, and it isn't fair.
Councillor Wilson. In which case, we shall take a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If councillors could indicate whether they are for the motion or against it, or wish to abstain when I call out their name. Councillor Baxter Payne. Councillor Brown. Councillor Cape. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Coventry Morton. Councillor Croft. Councillor Kovetkovich. Councillor Downs and Councillor Anderson not with us. Councillor Golby. Councillor Green. Councillor Guttridge. Councillor Hammersley. Councillor Harbison. Councillor Hartshorn has left the meeting. Councillor Kenner. Councillor Condacor. Councillor Markham. Councillor Morton. Councillor Pandair. Councillor Jill Shepherd. Councillor Tracy Shepherd. Councillor Shires. Councillor Singh. Councillor Smith. Councillor Troman's both not with us. Councillor Walsh. Councillor Watkins. Councillor Wilson. And Councillor Wright. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's carried.
In which case, that motion is carried. Thank you. Given there's no other matters on the agenda, no other business, I thank you for your time. Thank you very much indeed. That concludes the meeting for this evening.